I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the digital clock. It was 5:30 p.m. In a couple of hours, I'd be at my company's annual holiday party. But it wasn't just the axe throwing or the free drinks that had me excited. It was the rare chance for a night out with Laura, my wife. We hadn't had a proper date since, well, I couldn't even remember. Between juggling my job and her career, plus the whirlwind of raising 3 kids, Mia, 10, Jacob, 8, and little Sarah, 5. Our lives were a carousel of school runs, packed lunches, and bedtime stories. Our conversations were peppered with talk of grocery lists and parent-teacher meetings, leaving little room for anything else. So when this party was announced 2 months ago, we saw it as a golden opportunity. Laura had been on board from the start, even suggesting a late-night movie after the party. I remember how her eyes had sparkled with that suggestion, a flicker of our dating days. I had called Mrs. Henderson, our trusted babysitter, weeks in advance, ensuring she'd be there to watch the kids. Everything was set for a perfect evening. The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my reverie. Laura walked in, her shoulders slumped, her usually bright eyes clouded with fatigue. My heart sank. I knew that look. "Rough day?" I asked, already bracing myself for the answer. She sighed, dropping her bag on the chair. "The worst. I'm not up for the party tonight. I'm sorry. I just can't." I felt a twinge of disappointment, but masked it quickly with a nod. "I understand. Bad days happen." As she trudged upstairs, I pulled out my phone and dialed Mrs. Henderson's number. "Hey, Mrs. Henderson, I'm really sorry, but we won't be needing you tonight. Laura's had a tough day and won't be coming to the party with me. Of course, I'll Venmo you the cancellation fee." It seemed like the sensible thing to do. Why have a babysitter when Laura was home? Minutes later, as I was knotting my tie, Laura reappeared, looking slightly more composed. "When's Mrs. Henderson arriving?" she asked. I paused, confused. I canceled her. You said you weren't coming, so I thought." Her expression changed instantly, her exhaustion morphing into frustration. "You canceled her? Sean, I needed this night. Just because I'm not going out doesn't mean I don't need a break, especially after today. But I thought you'd be okay with the kids. I didn't think having a babysitter made sense if you were home," I tried to explain, but she wasn't having any of it. "No, you just assumed. You should have asked me first," she retorted, her voice rising. I was taken aback. This wasn't just about the babysitter. It was about needing space, needing a break. But in that moment, I couldn't see it. All I saw was a plan falling apart and a night that was supposed to be ours turning into just another evening of misunderstandings and unmet expectations. "I have to go," I said finally, grabbing my coat. "We can talk about this later." As I left, her words echoed in my head, a mix of frustration and guilt beginning to stir within me. The night was off to a rocky start, and little did I know, it was only going to get more complicated. The drive to the venue was a blur, my mind stuck in a loop replaying Laura's words. Could I have handled it better? Maybe. But at that moment, in my mind, I was being practical. The sound of the axe thudding into the wooden target snapped me back to reality. I was at the party, but far from present. I mingled half-heartedly, offering smiles and nods where necessary. My colleagues seemed to be enjoying the novelty of axe throwing, their laughter and cheers filling the room. But I couldn't shake off the image of Laura, looking both defeated and frustrated. "Hey, Sean, you all right?" Mark, a colleague and a friend, nudged me as I missed the target yet again. "Yeah, just thinking about something at home," I admitted, my throat going wide once more. "Trouble in paradise?" he asked, half joking. I shrugged. Laura had a bad day, decided not to come. I canceled the babysitter, and now she's upset about it. Mark raised an eyebrow. "You canceled the sitter? Dude, that's risky territory." I defended my decision. It didn't make sense to have one when she was home. I thought I was doing the right thing. Mark was thoughtful for a moment. "Sometimes what seems logical to us isn't what they need. Did you ask her before canceling?" The question hit home. I hadn't. I assumed, and now I was at a party, my mind miles away. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Texts from Laura, each one a crescendo of frustration and exhaustion. The kids were being particularly challenging, and Mrs. Henderson wasn't answering her calls. I excused myself from the group, stepping outside for a moment of quiet. The cold air was a slap to my face, a wake-up call. I dialed Mrs. Henderson, hoping she'd pick up, but it went to voicemail. I texted Laura, trying to placate her, saying I'd come home early. I leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of my decision. It wasn't just about tonight. It was about understanding, about recognizing when to step in and when to step back. In my effort to be logical, I had overlooked her need for space, for a moment of respite from the daily chaos. The party buzzed inside, a stark contrast to my internal turmoil. I realized then that this wasn't just about a canceled babysitter. It was about empathy, about seeing beyond the surface of "I'm fine" and "it's okay." With a heavy heart, I decided to leave the party early, my mind filled with apologies and resolutions. But as I drove back, I couldn't help but feel a sense of failure, not just in misjudging the situation, but in missing an opportunity to support Laura when she needed it the most. The vibrant noise of the party faded into the background as I stepped into the cold night, the door closing behind me with a soft thud. I should have been there, throwing axes, laughing, maybe even winning some silly prize. Instead, I was heading home, my mind a turmoil of regret and confusion. Driving back, the empty passenger seat next to me was a stark reminder of how the evening was supposed to unfold. Laura and I, side by side, sharing laughs, maybe stealing a kiss or two. But reality was far different. I glanced at my phone, resting on the dashboard, lighting up with Laura's messages, each one a mix of frustration, exhaustion, and a hint of desperation. As I navigated the familiar streets, my thoughts wandered to Laura. She had been looking forward to tonight, not just as a date, but as a break from our everyday life. I realized then how much she needed this, not just a night out, but a night off. From being a mom, from responsibilities, from everything. I remembered our earlier days, the spontaneity, the freedom. Things had changed, understandably, but had I become so engrossed in the mechanics of our life that I forgot to look at the person living it with me? Pulling into the driveway, I braced myself. The lights were on, shadows moving behind the curtains. The normalcy of the scene was a stark contrast to the chaos I was about to walk into. As I opened the door, the sound of laughter and crying, meshed with the TV's blare, greeted me. The kids, oblivious to the tension, were scattered around, Mia on her tablet, Jacob building a fort out of cushions, and little Sarah, her eyes red from crying, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Laura was on the couch, a picture of exhaustion, surrounded by toys and books. She looked up, her eyes a mix of relief and resentment. "You're back early," she said, her voice tired. I nodded, taking in the scene. Yeah, it didn't feel right being there. We talked, or more accurately, tried to talk over the kids' noise. It was a conversation punctuated with interruptions, a spilled drink, a sibling squabble, 1,000 tiny demands that Laura navigated with a weary expertise. As I helped settle the kids, read bedtime stories, and tucked them in, I saw the day-to-day reality that Laura faced. It was in the patient way she calmed Sarah's tears, the firm yet loving way she handled Jacob's protests, and the understanding nods she gave to Mia's endless questions. I realized then that my decision, though well-intentioned, had been a misstep. Not because it was illogical, but because it lacked the empathy and understanding that Laura needed from me. It wasn't just about being physically present. It was about being emotionally attuned to her needs, her struggles. That night, as we lay in bed, the house finally quiet. Laura's soft breathing beside me was a reminder of the balance we were still learning to strike between being parents, partners, and individuals with our own needs. The lesson was clear. Communication and empathy were key, and sometimes understanding was more important than any solution I thought I had. The quiet of the house was a stark contrast to the cacophony of the evening. Laura lay beside me, her breath steady but her body tense. I knew we had things to unpack, words left unsaid that hung in the air like a thick fog. "Laura," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry about tonight. I should have asked you before canceling Mrs. Henderson." She turned to face me, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. "It's not just about the babysitter, Sean. It's about feeling supported, feeling understood." I listened, really listened, as she spoke about her day. The unending demands at work, the pressure, the exhaustion. How she had looked forward to tonight as an escape, a brief respite. Her words painted a picture of her struggles, ones that I had been too preoccupied to see. "I know you handle the kids well, and I thought I was doing the right thing, but I missed what you were actually saying. You needed a break, not just physically, but mentally, I said, the realization dawning on me. She nodded, a tear escaping down her cheek. Some days, I just need to be not just away from work, but away from everything, just for a little while. I held her hand, feeling the weight of her unspoken burdens. I get it now, and I'm sorry. I'll do better, I promise. The conversation wasn't easy. It brought out vulnerabilities, fears, and unmet needs. We talked about how our roles as parents sometimes overshadowed our individual needs, how we often put on brave faces, pretending to have it all together when in reality, we were just one step away from falling apart. We discussed the importance of self-care, of giving each other the space to recharge. I realized that being a partner wasn't just about sharing responsibilities. It was about sharing emotional spaces, understanding silences, and reading between the lines. As we talked, a plan began to form, a promise to each other to be more communicative, more understanding, to not just assume, but to ask, to listen. We agreed to set aside time for ourselves, both individually and as a couple. It was a commitment to not just coexist, but to co-grow, to navigate the complexities of life together. That night, as I finally drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of resolution mixed with a newfound understanding. The evening hadn't gone as planned, but perhaps it was a necessary detour, one that brought to light the unseen cracks in our relationship. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that in the whirlwind of life, we needed to pause, reflect, and reconnect. The next few days were a period of quiet introspection. The usual routine resumed, but there was an undercurrent of change, a subtle shift in our interactions. We were more mindful, more attuned to each other's needs. In the quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on the events of that night. It was like looking at a familiar picture, but noticing details I had previously overlooked. Laura's need for a break wasn't a mere whim. It was a necessity, a lifeline in our hectic life. I spoke to a few friends about it, seeking different perspectives. Some echoed my initial logic, but others offered insights that broadened my understanding. They talked about the importance of mental health, of giving each other space to breathe. It was a learning curve, understanding that sometimes what's logical isn't always what's needed. During a lunch break, I called Laura. "How's your day going?" I asked, a simple question, but laden with genuine concern. "Better," she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Thanks for asking." We began to have more of these check-ins, short conversations where we shared not just updates but feelings and thoughts. It was a new layer to our communication, one that brought us closer. I also started to notice more. The way Laura's eyes lit up when she had a moment to herself, the grateful smile when I took over some chores without being asked, the relieved sigh when I suggested a spontaneous family outing to give her a break. These small observations became significant, pieces of a larger puzzle of our shared life. One evening, as we sat on the couch after the kids were in bed, I broached the topic of that night again. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," I began. "I want to understand better. Tell me what you need, what I can do." Laura leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "Just this," she said, "talking, understanding, being here. It's not about grand gestures, but about the little things that show you care." That conversation was a turning point. We didn't just talk, we connected, delving into topics we had skirted around before. We discussed our dreams, our fears, our frustrations. It wasn't always easy, but it was honest and raw. We also started planning regular date nights, not just as a couple, but for each other individually. Time alone to do whatever we wanted, no questions asked. It was our way of acknowledging that apart from being partners and parents, we were individuals with our own needs. As days turned into weeks, the changes became more apparent. There was a new rhythm to our life, a harmony that stemmed from mutual understanding and respect. We laughed more, argued less, and found joy in the simple act of being together. Looking back, I realized that the incident with the babysitter was a catalyst for a deeper connection. It forced us to confront issues we had been ignoring and opened a dialogue that strengthened our bond. As the days melded into a new normal, I realized that the incident with the babysitter had been a blessing in disguise. It was a jolt out of our complacency, a reminder that our marriage, like any living thing, needed care and nurturing. We had started implementing our plans for individual and shared time. Laura had her first day off, a day where she did whatever she pleased while I took care of everything at home. She returned rejuvenated, her smile brighter, her energy renewed. Seeing her like that filled me with a sense of accomplishment and happiness. Then came our scheduled date night. I had arranged everything. Dinner at her favorite restaurant, followed by a movie, the genre of which was her choice. It felt like those early days of our relationship, tinged with excitement and a hint of nervousness. As we sat across from each other at the restaurant, candlelight flickering between us, I saw in Laura's eyes a spark that had been dimmed by the routine of daily life. We talked, laughed, and for those few hours, we were not just parents or partners, but Sean and Laura, two people rediscovering each other. On the drive home, Laura took my hand. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "Tonight was perfect, and not just because of the dinner or the movie, but because I know you understand me better now. That means everything." I squeezed her hand, a surge of emotions welling up inside me. "I should be the one thanking you, for being patient with me, for helping me see what I was missing. I love you, Laura, and I promise to keep trying, to keep understanding, to keep loving you better every day." We continued our journey, planning more dates, more individual days off, more moments to connect. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were days when old habits crept back in, but we now had the tools and the understanding to navigate through them. Our story wasn't just about a missed party or a canceled babysitter. It was about the intricacies of a shared life, the ups and downs, the give and take. It was a reminder that love, in its essence, is an ongoing journey of understanding, adapting, and growing together. As I lay beside Laura that night, her breathing calm and steady, I thought about the paths we had walked and the ones still ahead. I knew there would be challenges, but I also knew that as long as we walked them together, with empathy and love, we would not just endure, but thrive. In the quiet of the night, I made a silent vow, to not just be a husband or a father, but to be a partner in every sense of the word. A partner who listens, who understands, who supports. And with that vow, I drifted into a peaceful sleep, ready for the days ahead, filled with love, challenges, and endless possibilities.